This is Mason. It's 11 o'clock in the morning in Syracuse, and we're live in the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, welcome Thursday morning. How we doing? Live in the 315. Glad to have you in. Syracuse basketball is officially qualified for the tournament. What a moment, BJD. Wow. Talk about not having a game during the middle of the week. Stuff can happen. Stuff has happened. Lots coming up on the show today. As always, if you'd like to join the show, a link pinned top of the chat. Link pinned top of the chat. That is just exciting news. Exciting news that Adrian Autry is guaranteed at least one more game down in Charlotte after the three that we got coming up this week. Busy show today as per the usual. Let's get it going with our Thompson Road Tavern opening menu for the show. As I mentioned, link pin top of the chat if you would like to join the show and converse about whatever's on your mind. Just click the link and, do the things. Turn your camera on and your mic on and all the things, and we can put you right on the old program here today. So the Cuse in the ACC tournament. Obviously, it wasn't anything that was really in doubt here of late Syracuse in the bracket I saw yesterday. Syracuse was kind of in like the 12 seed game. Obviously, a lot. The standings are just a mess, as does happen in an 18-team league. Realistically, Syracuse will be playing on the first Tuesday, barring something crazy. The only Tuesday they will be playing on Tuesday, barring something crazy coming on. And we'll see. We'll see what happens and what day it all mercifully ends here in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, that Tuesday is 12 days from now. That could be the last day of the season, or to all of your points, Syracuse could make an inspirational run, a la NC State, through the ACC tournament. So what else do we got on the opening menu today from Thompson Road Tavern? We'll get back to No Wrong Answers today. We didn't have it on Monday because no games were happening. Today, double dose No Wrong Answers, as we are going to get you No Wrong Answers for both lacrosse tomorrow, Syracuse, and Princeton. That's a major game down in New Jersey at 4 o'clock. We'll have a post game for you tomorrow early evening. And then Saturday, we'll do a little No Wrong Answers for Syracuse and Wake Forest as well. We will also continue our Who's Next series. It'll be our ninth potential candidate for Who's Next in a Xavier-themed week. That's your hint. It's a Xavier theme week of Who's Next that we will get to later on in the show as well. So we'll see who we might chat about during that portion of the show. And again, I'm not open for ideas for today for Who's Next, but certainly willing to add anyone that you've got atop of the brain to the Who's Next list, as we will continue this on Monday when the calendar, shockingly, reads March, as we get there sooner than you'd think here. Sooner than you think. We're getting awfully close to that time of year, which sadly, it's March. Great. Doesn't really matter for Syracuse, does it? Yeah, March basketball. Whoa. Yeah, used to be fun. As far as the Thompson Road Tavern menu itself, today is Thursday, and the special today is tortellini Alfredo with either Cajun chicken or Cajun steak, and whichever Cajun you do, you also get a piece of garlic toast. If you're preferring soup here on a chilly February afternoon, how about a Tuscan white bean? Why not? Tomorrow, a Fish Friday. If you want to do that, they got the fried haddock sandwich coming up tomorrow. There we are at Thompson Road Tavern. Opening menu today as we launch into it on this Thursday live in the 315. Thank you, as always, for stopping by. Thanks to all of our fine sponsors. Yeah, there's the link in the chat to buy your own backyard bird cam from our friends at Wild Birds Unlimited. Always a great option. Always a great option. Steve Forbes, he's in trouble at Wake. You talk about coaching situations in the ACC, PJD. Obviously read like that's coming to a head here. It easily could be, I don't know his contractual situation. This easily could be Steve Forbes's last year at Wake. Yeah, Kev, I'd agree. Steak and Alfredo don't quite sound right together to me, but would I'd go chicken in that direction. But the Cajunizing is always nice. Yeah, this could be Steve Forbes last year down at Wake. There was I heard a rumor the other day. Where did I even hear this rumor? I don't even recall where I heard this rumor, if there's any validity at all to this rumor, but this would be wild. So, a name that's not come up on Who's Next, but certainly would have come up on Who's Next if we had been in this market a year or two ago, certainly last year, is Will Wade, who is the current head coach of NC State. And you might say, well, what? Why would we potentially talk about Will Wade? Well, we're not talking about Will Wade for Syracuse because he's first year at NC State and doing quite well. This is the rumor I heard the other day. And for the love of me, I don't even remember where I heard it, or I have zero idea if there's any validity to it, but it's a crazy enough rumor, we might as well just say it out loud. That LSU, who once had to fire Will Wade because of the whole FBI situation, might be trying to get him back. Be like, well, yeah, all the stuff now, who cares? And LSU, we know that they're just dripping in cash when it comes to coaching hires. That would be hilarious if Will was one and done at NC State and went back to LSU. Again, zero clue if that has anything at all to it, but that would be something kind of special if Will Wade one and done to NC State and went back to LSU. Other coaching jobs in the ACC feels like, steak. You can make steak work if you put your mind to it, Kid Navy. Like BC, Anthony Grant, that's probably going to be an open job. That's the hardest job in the league, and I don't think it's a question. Right now, it is just extremely, extremely hard for BC to win at ACC basketball. They're in a rough spot. You talk about all the issues Syracuse has had from joining the ACC. Like, BC's been doing it longer, and, man, they just cannot get out of their own way on the basketball side of things. We talked last night extensively about the idea of Mike Hopkins potentially, rumors, potentially legit being in the mix for the Orange job. And Hop, over the course of his career at Syracuse, generally actively, I know he interviewed at Boston College before. I forget the exact thing. I think but then kind of pulled himself out, if memory serves. I do wonder if Hop, I could see Boston College going after a Mike Hopkins like that. That would make sense. Do you say you don't get a Syracuse offer if you're Hop, but BC comes after you? Are you, I don't want to use the word desperate, but is kind of what it would be. Do you want to get back into the college head coaching game so much that you take a job that you know is damn near impossible? That would be kind of wild. I was talking with somebody the other day about the scenario of, all right, you don't hire Jerry this offseason because, he's still new to it at Siena and the whole thing. But there's rumors out there that Jerry is liked in potential future coaching circles, if not this year, but at some point to get a decent job. Siena, as we've talked about repeatedly, has oft been a launching point for coaches who win there over the years. When you look at Louis Orr and Paul Hewitt and Fran McCaffrey and Mike Dean going way back, if you win at Siena, if you go to the tournament at Siena, you will get a major coaching job. So I think Syracuse has always felt like, well, if and when Jerry's, break glass in case of emergency, or, at some point Jerry comes back. There's not a zero chance possibility that at some point in the future that Jerry is the head coach of another major conference team. Not that you need to hire him to prevent that, but just, I think we all need to mentally prepare ourselves for these situations. It's very, very possible these things can happen at some point. But fascinating to watch. At the moment, hey Jen, at the moment of jobs that we presume to be open this year, Syracuse is still top of the list or close to, but you just never really know, right, when a big money school is going to come out swinging and be just like, hey, we got money, not up to standards right now, you get out and we're paying money for you, come in. You never quite know when something like that's going to go down. I keep an eye on Ohio State if they're struggling. So, we mentioned LSU, things like that. You wonder when one of the schools that's got SEC or Big Ten money just gets in the mix. Just mix in the mix. Yeah, we're gonna Gordon Bombay. Can you win a basketball game with the knuckle puck? Is a question. Where does Goldberg fit on a basketball court? The questions. Gordon Bombay should be a very seasoned coach by now, though he really focused in the hockey area. Can he transcend sports and figure it out at another level? Just a lot of questions. Yeah, you have been sentenced to coach Syracuse University basketball. Sentenced. I've been getting a lot of questions too about, because we've talked ad nauseum about who the next Syracuse basketball head coach is going to be, and continue to talk about it. We shall. Obviously, in many ways, that's the most interesting conversation. That's what we all deal with. We are watching it, the whole thing. We want Syracuse basketball to be good for our own personal entertainment. But we've talked about the other two extremely important jobs from like a vertical scenario that are open at Syracuse right now, and that's chancellor and athletic director. And while chancellor certainly is very important to, the direction of the university and how that affects the athletic department, in both interest from the university and funding from the university, but the AD situation is fascinating. We've talked a lot about Heather Lyke, and I've made it quite clear that I do not like the idea of hiring Heather Lyke for a variety of reasons, one being Mr. Capel's contract at Pitt, which is probably the worst in major college basketball right now, and the other being that Pitt is going through its own Coach Q scandal, not with Coach Q, that, are you really going to, Syracuse just did that? Are you going to hire somebody that oversaw, allegedly, the same thing? Those two things, and that I haven't heard great things behind the scenes either, but those two things stand out to me as, really? Besides that, every just generic list I've seen out there about potential AD candidates, the ones that are, they're trying to come up with some vaguely Syracuse-related tie, right? There was one the other day I saw that had Tom Theodorakis on it, who was a former Syracuse, mostly reserve lacrosse defenseman back in the early 2000s. I believe he was on the 2004 title team. I did not realize that Tom was the AD at Army, and good for him. He very recently, I saw, within the last week, signed an extension to stay at an Army. So congrats to Tom for that. So kind of cross a name off the list. You look at some of the other names on the list. Let me pull up the, let's see, Syracuse AD possibilities. All right, here is the Syracuse.com list compiled by one Mike Waters as of, I think it was the day after John Wildhack announced his retirement. He had Tom Theodorakis in there, Heather Lyke in there, Dr. Andrew Goodrich, who was a Syracuse, associate AD for a handful of years under John, and has since moved on to be the AD at Gardner-Webb and now Akron. I would steer clear of that. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Reggie Terry, a popular name in many communities. He's currently a Boston College senior associate AD. He was the director of ops and in charge of a lot of things toward the end of Coach P's time. Spent time in the NFL with the Cardinals. Has been at BC for the last decade. I like Reggie. Everybody I know that knows Reggie really like Reggie. Yeah, I'm trying to talk us out of it, Govindo. Here's what Reggie is lacking that I would really prefer the next AD to have. I would prefer the next Syracuse AD to have been an AD. I think it is really important. Much like we're looking at the next Syracuse basketball coach, I prefer them to have been a head coach. This is not necessarily the time for on-the-job learning. And as much as, I hear good things about Reggie, that's a big seat to step into. Nick Carparelli's a guy that has been around the block a lot. He's worked in the Big East. He's a Syracuse guy from back in the Coach Mack and Coach P days. Graduated from Syracuse in '94. He's worked with the Patriots. I mentioned the Big East. He has a job now. He's worked for Under Armour. He's worked for the overseeing of like all of the bowls and all that. Good dude, Nick. I could see that because he has a wide range of things. He has not been an athletic director, though, which would be my one reservation there. They list the ADs of UConn and UMass, Dave Benedict and Ryan Bamford. I doubt the UConn AD would leave. Just all things considered, especially where their basketball teams are right now. The UMass AD, I don't know. That's kind of a weird tie. Mark Jackson, another name that Mike Waters listed. He was one of the original aides for Darryl back in the day. He's bounced around. He's been at Villanova. And now he's the new-ish AD at Northwestern from 2 years ago. I just don't think a Big Ten AD is going to leave that gig. So, all right, there's some names on that list that are certainly possible. But, like, where are we at? Our guy Mike McAllister has been doing various lists. John Cunningham's another name who was the number 2 in charge for Mark Coyle in the very, very few months that they were there. He's the AD at Cincinnati. Maybe. Here's a name. And this is not a name I knew before. No, here's 2 names that I did not know before Mike's article. And here's what I'd like Syracuse to be looking for. Oh, Fella Furtis here. Oh, and Smashing Louise is here. Let's start it going on. Yeah, the UMass one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, Fella Furta. And yeah, Heather Lyke is quite literally being sued by a handful plus former Syracuse or Pittsburgh women's basketball players. So yeah, there's just a lot of that. I don't know. A name listed here is the current James Madison athletic director, Matt Rohn. He's only been on the job there for not even quite 2 years. I don't know a thing about him. But here's what I think Syracuse needs in the position right now. When Mark Coyle got hired to follow Darryl, now, gosh, that's more than 10 years ago now. That happened. He took over in like June or whatever it was of 2015, and he was gonzo by May of 2016. I like the cut of that guy's jib. It felt like he got it and was going to put things on a good path, but then he was gone because he got a Big Ten job offer. And I don't think he liked the financial structure and a lot of things once he really dug in behind the scenes at Syracuse. But the way he ran the ship, the way he had been an AD at Boise State, the way he'd worked his way up, the way he got it from an NCAA level, like the guy got it. The guy got it as far as at least in 2015 and still now at Minnesota, what like the modern college athletics landscape looks like, needs to look like, and how to make changes in a way to make it forward-looking instead of past-looking. Now, I'm not saying go hire Mark Coyle, but can you find a guy like that that's on the way up, that with the significant difference from what happened with Mark Coyle, can you find somebody that would take the job and at least stay here for a minute? Because, of all the things we don't like of how Coyle left, he left like the Baltimore Colts to Indianapolis. That guy was out literally in the middle of the night. Like, the stories are crazy. Like, Mark was down at the ACC meetings with all the athletic directors. And it was like day 2 of the meetings. A Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was. Day 1, they're all the ADs, however many there were at the time, 14, I guess, 15, I don't know, who can keep track. They're all in the room, they're having the meetings day 1. Day 2, 9 a.m., coffee's out, everyone's ready to go for day 2 of the ACC meetings, and I presume lovely Greensboro at the time or wherever the hell they were. And there's a chair empty in, the conference room. Mark's not there. In a room filled with ADs. And not a single one of them knew where he was. He was in Minneapolis. He was gone. He was absolutely gone already. That's the part that we don't necessarily like of how it worked out with Mark. As far as his leadership style, the way he went about the idea of what college athletics are. This was pre-NIL. As far as the fact that he was on the rise, like all of that stuff fits. If Mark had been here for 4 or 5 years, I'm not saying he would have stayed this long. Like if Coyle had put into place all the stuff that we think he was probably going to do, the way the athletic department operated would look vastly different now than it does. And I think you need somebody like that. So here's the guy, Matt Roan. I don't know anything about Matt Roan, but, James Madison, they run a sharp athletic department. They're winning football games. They're winning basketball games. They're doing all sorts of stuff. So this is a guy, Matt Roan. He was 4 years AD at Eastern Kentucky. Now he's a couple of years at James Madison. He, unlike Syracuse, hired Bob Chesney, who's now the head coach at UCLA for football. So I'm not saying Matt Roan. I don't know Matt Roan from a hole in the wall. I didn't know Mark Coyle from a hole in the wall. This is the type of person that makes sense to me. Somebody that's on that career trajectory, that understands where we're at in college athletics right now. Another name that Mike McAllister had on his list is Troy Austin, who's a deputy director of athletics at Duke. And he does not exactly fit the idea of a guy that's a current AD, but here's where this guy is interesting from just reading Matt Rowe. Shout out to Matt Rowe. Here's where this guy is interesting because he was the AD at Longwood, so he was like a low major, mid-major AD at the Division I level. Then he went to Duke to be the director of essentially fundraising. Duke raises some funds now. Holy moly, Duke raises some funds now. Duke raises some funds now. And like you'd have a guy that in the ACC has like a grasper on fundraising and who had been an AD before. Like, I don't know anything about Troy Austin, but I look at the profile of those two people, that makes sense to me. The profile makes sense to me. I like the profile. No, it wasn't that fella further. Coyle had handled the Boeheim situation. It was handled. All the official contracts and stuff that happened around that happened when Mark Coyle was in charge. It was handled. Like all the official contracts to make the coach in waiting with Hop and all that stuff, that's when Mark was in charge. It went kablooey when he left. Like that part got handled. Now, I don't think he had quite realized what he had got into from like fiscal and a budgetary situation and everything. A lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff at Syracuse when it comes to that. I'll say this. If Mark Coyle had stayed AD, I would bet that Hop became the head coach contractually when it was going to happen. That's my guess. Like you talk about a sliding doors thing of how A leads to B leads to C and whatever, and I'm sure Boeheim would deny these things are connected, but I would bet that if Mark Coyle stayed AD for 4 years or something, that Hop would have become the Syracuse head coach, and who knows, may or may not be the head coach now. Duke raises funds. The Amish raised barns quickly and quietly. Oh man, they were crazy story. Why am I blanking on his name? Who's the former Saint Bonaventure AD? Nope, not you. Joe Manhertz. So Joe Manhertz was a guy that he had a weird exit from St. Bonaventure, neither here nor there, but he was in the Syracuse fundraising department, yada, yada, yada. He eventually ends up as the lead, basically this same position of this guy we're talking about at Duke right now, this Troy Austin. Before he was there, Joe Manhertz had that position at Duke. So Kyle Federle, man of the people, man who knows all, obviously worked at Syracuse for 8 million years, so he knows all these people. We're down at Duke for a lacrosse game, a couple of handfuls of years ago, and we see Joe walking across the way in a lovely spring day in Durham that day. So Kyle gives him the wave and whatever, and they're chatting for a bit. And then Joe, this was fundraising at Duke. Joe says, "All right, guys, I gotta go. I'm hopping a flight to D.C. because, and by flight, a PJ, one of them private jets. I'm hopping a flight to D.C. because I'm playing golf at Congressional, the site of U.S. Opens and whatnot. With a donor, I have to go pick up $1 million check. But he did not say that as if it was out of the ordinary. That was just like, it was just a Friday. It was just like, well, it's Friday afternoon. I need to go hop on the plane to fly to D.C. to go play one of the best golf courses in the country so I can get the $1 million check and then go back. Like, they could have wired the cash, but, they worked it around at Congressional on top of it. Like, that's the Duke fundraising job. A good gig. Good gig. It didn't really seem like Joe had to, really grind for that mill either. That was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's just one of those things that... Man, Duke's got the money. So that job as a fundraiser isn't necessarily the most trying fundraising job in the country. Raising the funds at Syracuse, a little bit trickier. And again, I don't know Troy Austin, Deputy Director of Athletics and Development at Duke, or Matt Roan, Director of Athletics at James Madison, from literally this random picture of a doctor above them in the ad on the page I'm reading from on Cuse Nation from Mike McAllister on 24/7 Sports. I don't know these guys. Never met these guys. Couldn't tell you what either of them look like. I'm not saying they are the right candidates. I like the idea of what they are, though. And it doesn't mean just them. I'd love for Syracuse to look at people like them. Give me somebody who's either really based in fundraising, give me somebody that is a really strong as an athletic department leader that can control those people and lead it. Maybe you're not the best fundraiser, but you can lead your group, lead the horse to water and make him drink, the whole thing. I don't know. Like the other list, it's just, it's not like just the standard lists that have been out there. I don't disagree with why those lists exist. This is not me disputing the lists. The lists are fine. The lists are just not inspiring. The lists are not inspiring at all. Kingpin holds up, Tronic? I haven't seen that in a minute. In several minutes. I don't know if I've seen that this century. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. So there we are. That's a little who's next side quest into the AD search where, I look at the list and I say, okay, search committee, Tarico, Ian McIntyre, the whole crew. Let's really search here. Let's dig down, dive down, and more so than the individual. And I know you need to hire an individual at some point. When it comes to AD, the background, the style, I'd like to have the right archetype in that job of somebody that can and has been and is ready to handle the job of modern AD in 2026 going forward, because it's a very different job than it was before. It's one that requires experience, and maybe hire Liam Neeson, because it's one that requires a certain set of skills, which I find are very, very important. And when it comes to fundraising for an AD now, there are so many areas. You need money for this. You need money for that. NIL. And you have a lot of different hands that are asking the same people for money. In my mind right now, more so than hiring coaches or organizing the athletic department, the most important thing for a modern AD to do right now is to be able to not necessarily raise the money, but to make sure that the people that are willing to give the money are not directing it where they want it to go. They are directing it where you as the AD need it to go. Hey, these people want to build a track over here. It's like, no, it's like, that's great and all, and we will do that, I promise. But today, right now, we need money for basketball NIL. Can you put your funds this year there? And I promise you will get back to that. And then follow through on that. But things like that are way more important now than we really got to dive into the field hockey schedule and make sure everything's okay. Back in the day, yeah, that stuff and the logistics and all that were important. That stuff is still important. But right now, it's corralling all your big money people and then getting them pointed all in the direction they need to be pointed at that moment in time. And then when the direction needs to change, you need to make sure they change their direction as well. It's not easy, But in my mind, that is the main thing about the job of an athletic director, especially an about to be new one on the scene here in 2026. All right, that's a little like who's next side quest when it comes to the athletic director. Again, link pin top of the chat if you'd like to join the show. If you've been trying, apologies. I've been ignoring that tab. So, sorry about that. Right now, though, we can have a who's next side quest. Let's line it up. Let's have a who's next main quest.
Mason here. It's time to continue our search for the next Syracuse basketball head coach. With today's candidate, here's Brian.
Why, thank you, Mason. Back at it here. Who's next? You always got to feel the vibes. Me for AD. Yeah, I'll take the paycheck. I don't know if he'd be good at the job, but I will take the paycheck. It is Xavier week on Who's Next. Why is it Xavier week? Because who doesn't like a theme week? You don't like a theme week? You get out. Why is it Xavier week? On Monday, we Who's Nexted one Travis Steele, the current head coach of Miami of Ohio, the previous head coach of Xavier. That was Who's Next on Monday. I haven't heard the total number, Ryan. I think it's a decent collection are coming back for this one. So, Travis Steele on Monday. Because of popular demand, not because of any realistic expectations, even though he got his butt unbelievably whooped last night by Connecticut. In a previous edition of Who's Next, we profiled one Rick Pitino. In a previous edition of Who's Next. And now, as we previewed Rick Pitino in a previous edition of Who's Next, here on Xavier Week of Who's Next, our next candidate to take a look at for the next head coach of Syracuse basketball is one Richard Pitino, the current head coach of Xavier basketball. You want a Rick Pitino? There, I got you, Rick Pitino. Yeah, it may not be the Rick Pitino you wanted, but it could be the Rick Pitino that you need right now. Richard Pitino, it is first year currently at head coach at Xavier, is the person that we are going to examine today as the 9th member of our series in Who's Next. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to explore the idea of hiring Richard Pitino, which I could argue for or against it, you're not doing it based on this year. Because Richard is still, let's go with young, right? He's 43. He's 6 months or so younger than I am. So we're going to call him young, and that makes us all feel better. Xavier's not great right now. He's in his first year there. They're 13-15, 5-12. And you might say, Syracuse can't possibly hire a guy with that record. We kind of got to wipe that off to the side a little bit if you're going to consider the idea of this. What Richard is he's a guy that got a lot of chances really young. His last name's Pitino, if you're wondering how that happened. He's 43 years old. This is already his 4th head coaching job. He first got hired at FIU, Florida International, and was there just 1 year. 1 year, FIU, 2012-2013. The FIU Panthers went 18-14, 11-9 in the Sun Belt. You know what that doesn't immediately signify? A Big Ten coaching job. You know what Richard Pitino immediately got? A Big Ten coaching job, got hired by Minnesota, where he was there, the head coach, for 8 years. Immediately took over the program, won the NIT his first year. They made the NCAA tournament a couple of times, and then sort of trended downward to 3 of his last 4 seasons were losing seasons before he was eventually fired by, let's tie this whole thing back together of everything we've been talking about today, before Richard Pitino was eventually fired from Minnesota by Mark Coyle. Go figure. All tie it together. So Richard didn't even sit out a year, immediately back of the horse, and gets the head coaching job at New Mexico, the Lobos. So, and he took New Mexico from crap to really good. 13-19, 22-12, 26-10, 27-8. Losing record, NIT, first round of the NCAA tournament last year, or 2 years, last year, won an NCAA tournament game. They had one of the better mid-major teams in the country. The Xavier job comes open, which obviously has been, we talked about it earlier this week with Travis Steele, the Xavier job has been one of the better mid-major to low-high, wherever we're ranking Xavier, they've been mid-major, now they're in the Big East, Power 6, whatever the hell you want to call Xavier. It's one of the best jobs in the country at that level. So Richard has been in the conversation here in college basketball because of Dad for a really, really long time. And at points, he's proven himself to be a good coach. Look at what he did at New Mexico. What he has not proven yet is that he is a good coach at a high level consistently at a major level. That is a bit of a sticking point. Obviously, the name Pitino comes with cachet. I would say, like, if you're Syracuse, you're not getting Rick Pitino. If you're going to get a Pitino, Richard would be the one. He's an interesting candidate because we talked about this a bit with Travis Steele on Monday. Travis Steele's tenure at Xavier went poorly. Travis Steele at Miami of Ohio, lower level, he's clearly learned something because that program is improving year to year to year to year. Richard Pitino, whose tenure at Minnesota was kind of all over the map, but realistically, even though he finished with an all-time winning record, he had more losing seasons than winning. Or no, he had 8 seasons. He had 4 losing seasons and 4 winning seasons. He had 3 20-win seasons. This was not exactly the hallmark of success. It looked like he was on the way somewhere early and then never really developed into anything long term. More often than not, he finished with a ranking in the Big Ten that was double figures, 10th or below than above. But then, much like Travis Steele has done at Miami of Ohio, he went to New Mexico and then incrementally, 4 years, better, 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 better. It's an interesting name because he got thrust into the spotlight at a very, very young age. He's 43 now. He got his first head coaching job at 30. At 30 years old, he was the head coach of Florida International. At 31 years old, Richard Pitino was the head coach of Minnesota, Big Ten head coach. Realistically, his career trajectory is kind of not as much controversy involved and not nearly as ridiculous. It's got like a Lane Kiffin vibe to it, in obviously Lane, Monty Kiffin, Dad, the whole thing, lots of opportunities, young thing. It's got an interesting vibe to it. Do I think Richard will be the next Orange head coach? No, but if you're looking for somebody with head coaching experience that is both has a decent background and volume of said head coaching experience and is still relatively young when you consider the whole trajectory of it all, like, he's kind of right in that window. Now, would I rank him ahead at the moment of Josh Schertz or Brian Hodgson or even the guy that we talked about on Monday, Travis Steele? No, probably not. But you guys keep asking for a Rick Pitino. I've given you 2 Rick Pitinos in Who's Next. We've done 2 separate episodes about 2 different Rick Pitinos. Like, come on now. Give the people what they want. You wanted Rick Pitino. You got him. And then once I told you weren't going to get Rick Pitino, you wouldn't shut up about it. So I gave you a different Rick Pitino. You can deal with that. You can deal with that. Yeah, shout out to Beef on Wednesday. That was yesterday, It's Weck Wednesdays at our friends at the Thompson Road Tavern. Weck Wednesdays. It's an alliterative Weck. So there we are. Richard Pitino. He's an interesting circumstance. I don't know where his career is going to go from here. I don't think he'll be the next Syracuse head coach, but like you talk about, if you're going to cast a wide net and explore all options, like, give him a call, right? Give him a call. And yeah, Matt NY, Xavier was much better last year than this year. Last year, Sean Miller was the head coach, his second tenure through there, and he has immediately turned that into the Texas job. And Rick came on top of that. I don't know how much the roster changed over and all of that from last year to this. Obviously, it's college basketball, so the answer is probably significantly. you'd like to have a little more information, right? I would like to have seen him already win with Xavier to feel good about something like that. But I think, like, if you're Syracuse, it's a name to ponder. It's certainly a name to ponder. It's a name that's been around for a long time, and certainly he has experience while still being at a relatively young age when it comes to the coaching world. He's won games, not enough games. He's not dead, obviously. Like, Rick Pitino is one of the best coaches of all time, and some would argue he is the best coach of all time. Richard's not that. Maybe you can hire Richard Pitino, and then Rick will retire, and he can become like the special assistant or something, and then you can have all the Patinos. You can just collect the Patinos, collect them all. Gotta collect them all. I don't know. This is a guy that, I mean, he's been in coaching for a long, long time. He started as an assistant coach back in 2004 at Charleston, and he's been going assistant or head coach. He was the assistant and then an associate head coach for his dad at Louisville, and then, got the head gig at FIU very, very young before going on. But, like, all-time head coaching record, he's won 56% of his games, which is not necessarily a thrilling number when you look at it. But there we are. Who's next on this Thursday in our 9th installment? Our second Pitino, Richard. Okay, a little who's next for you on this Thursday. That's all I got on Richard. That's all I got on Richard. Yeah, like Richard Pitino, Madden White, he's always going to have a job in coaching. The question is, like, what is it? Water rises to its level. His level may not be what Dad's level is, and he may need to be at the mid-major level. Yeah, he may need to be at the mid-major level. Yeah, I've given you 2 Patinos. We've done 2 Patinos. So we're through 9. We've done 9 of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we've done 9 of these things. This started in January. Yeah, we didn't wait. We did Jerry on January 29th. Then we've done, this is our 8th and final installment of Who's Next for February, because, gosh, help us, Monday will be March, and we will keep going. Realistically, I don't know how many more we're going to get through of these, but I got some names here I'm still excited to present to you. We got some names here that are still exciting to present, but we are also open for suggestions. If anyone has, a third Pitino or anybody else that they want profiled on who's next going forward. Because if you look at the timetable here, realistically, we're going to have, let's see, 2 next week, at least 1. We'll have at least 3 more of these, I think, before Red could potentially be canned at the earliest. I do believe, if I have my weeks right, and then we'll have to keep Who's Next going. Like, once we actually start hearing candidates, if there's any names that we haven't talked about, we'll have to work them in and just see if it's like a fast track to a Brian Hodgson type or one of the other names we've already mentioned. We definitely, it would be sad if we did all this Who's Next stuff without being able to be amazing to have like 15 of these done and to have not mentioned the next head coach. There we go. But you're going to trade Charizard for a Pitino? Is it like an OG Charizard? Can I trade your Richard? Somebody told me they were at a local. Apparently, yesterday there was a release of new Pokemon cards. So I've been told, because my buddy was at an Aldi doing the grocery shopping, and like walked in and there was just like a line of Pokemon card people awaiting for like the official release of the whole thing. I was in an Aldi this morning just to buy a couple of things, and back to normal. Back to normal. I did, Gavendo. I did Bad and Wine. Thank you for that. Yeah, I've tried both. Both very good. Both very good. It's a big thing. There's a lot of them in the fridge right now. A lot of them in the fridge. I did spark some outrage with that, which is just like, if you are outraged with what I had to say, Jen, like you are what's the phrase? It's something like it is better to remain quiet and let people think you're a fool than to speak up and so they can be absolutely sure about it. I totally butchered that. But yeah, that's about what's happening right now. Rod Baker, like, is he the guy? Rod Baker, is he the guy that played at Wichita State? Who's what? Rod Baker? Am I thinking of the right guy? Am I thinking of the right guy? Rod Baker. Rod Baker Ford. Somebody named Rod Baker has a Ford dealership in Plainville, Illinois. Rod Baker, NBA. What do I know about Rod Baker? This is not the guy that played at Wichita State. This guy was the head coach of his most recent head coaching gig was a 1-25 season with UC Irvine in 1997. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he was the head coach of the Rochester Razor Sharks for 7 years. I don't know much about Rod Baker, but I'm just not coming. He's also 73 years old. What? Why am I looking at Rod Baker? That would be wild. He was the ABA Coach of the Year in 2006 for the Razor Sharks. He was an assistant for the Bakersfield Jam in 2013. Man, that's yeah. For 5 years, he was the head coach at Tufts in the 80s. I think I think that's about as much Rod Baker as we necessarily need to get in. Yikes. Rod Baker. Were we being serious about Rod Baker? That was a frightening thing. Shaheen may come up, Man and Why. He's on my list of potential options. Who would be awesome, Matt and Why, while I organize some things for No Wrong Answers? Who would be awesome? You tell me, and then I will determine if we should talk about it at length on another day. Who would be awesome? The suspense. Are you going to say Rick Pitino? Dawn Staley. Dawn's crazy, man. She's a fantastic coach. Dawn's a great coach. She is a different kind of human. Her and former Syracuse women's basketball assistant coach, now Rhode Island women's basketball head coach, and they're having a fantastic season, Tammy Reese. They were backcourt mates together for their career at Virginia in the late 80s and early 90s. Tammy was always telling us just the craziest freaking Dawn Staley stories. Those two were apparently not only the best players and like the best backcourt in the country, they were the team pranksters of Virginia women's basketball in the early 90s, but like crazy stuff. Like they locked their teammate in a trunk. They'd break into their teammates' apartments and like hide in the bathroom and then scare the living crap out of them. Those two were crazy. Absolutely crazy. Shout out Dawn Staley. Get me Gino Auriemma. Dawn's a great coach. Would Moten get a look if he was alive? I mean, being alive is a great qualification for the job. No is the short answer, Gavendo. No is the short answer. Yeah, Dawn's making some cash. Dawn's, what's Dawn's current salary? She's north of 3 a year. Dawn Staley contract. South Carolina is paying Dawn Staley. Dawn, a year ago, last January, signed a 5-year extension. Whoa, I undershot it. She signed a 5-year extension through 2030 for a total of $25.25 million. So she's making $5 million a year as the head coach at South Carolina. Yeah, that's like double what Boeheim ever made. That's double what Boeheim ever made. Who's the lady coach in the NBA? Are you trying Becky Hammon? Where is Becky right now? I've lost track of where Becky ended up. Is she coaching the Las Vegas Aces right now? I think that's where she is. Michael Malone, is that stuck in your head? I'm going to just assume Mike Malone will be an NBA head coach next season. Hey, Dawn, I'll say this. Like, Dawn would have the respect of those damn players. She demands respect. That I love Dawn. She's nutty. Like it's not going to happen, but it's nutty. Virginia really screwed the pooch on Dawn. Virginia, her alma mater, their job was open the same. She was the head coach at Temple. The Virginia job was open the same year as the South Carolina job was open, and Virginia like hemmed and hawed on it. And they didn't just, and she had done like really well at Temple. Like this wasn't like, oh, I'm just testing it out. No, she was the head coach at Temple while she was still like finishing her playing career, was doing 28 things at a time, and they won a lot of games. And South Carolina's like, yo, money, come. And her alma mater was like, I don't know. Yeah, we think we know which way it went on that. Yeah, Dawn is totally. The idea and Dawn are both insane, but she's fantastic. I love me some Dawn Staley. I love me some Dawn Staley. The women's and men's game are comparable. I mean, they're both playing basketball. Like, she knows basketball. But I don't know. I think a lot of it is, like, can you like, the name Dawn Staley, even in the men's basketball world, like, her name means something. Like, her name means something. Anyway. Before we've gone off on some alternate paths here for who's next, but right now we need to get ourselves officially ready for the weekend.
Hi, Mason again. It's time to find out exactly what's going to happen in the next Syracuse game. This is no wrong answers. Here's Brian.
Mason, you got to pluralize the next Syracuse games. We're doubling up, no wrong answers here. We're doing Lax tomorrow, the Orange at Princeton, 4 o'clock in Princeton, New Jersey, and then basketball at Wake Forest at the very, very normal tip time of 5:45 on the CW on Saturday. What a CW special just to really get it going on the road. All right, let's chronological this. Let's start with Syracuse and Princeton tomorrow. We will post-game show for it, so that'll be in the 6:30 range tomorrow. These teams played in the quarterfinals last year. It was the 4 seed and the 5 seed. Syracuse was trying to end the lengthy Final Four drought and did. And my goodness, did they play. That was maybe the game of the year in lacrosse. It was so good. Syracuse 19, Princeton 18. Back and forth game. The Orange had a lead. They blew it in the fourth quarter. And then Michael Leo and Owen Hiltz scored goals about 30 seconds apart with 4.5 minutes to go to take the lead for good down the stretch. It was a wild, high-scoring back and forth game. But that was the game that in many ways put to rest can Joey Spallina deliver in big games conversation. Because in that game, Joey Spallina went 4 goals and 4 assists in what was, at that point, the biggest game of his career. So that was the game that Joey's like, no, me, win now. He went very monosyllabic on it. And it was like, yeah, here we are. Here we are to do that. So I think, there's been some roster turnover, obviously, for both teams since last year. The Sam English story was always fun when he played against his old team, and, Jake Stevens when he was there a couple of years ago. Don't have any of that going this time around, but this is a major game here for Syracuse. It's number 6 versus number 7, but it's preseason number 2 versus preseason number 3. These are two teams that are both very cognizant of the idea that they're trying to win the national championship this year. So Syracuse coming in off a loss. Princeton coming in. They lost their opener to Penn State. Last week, they bounced back, and they beat Maryland by 1. So they're in off a win, but they're just 1-1. It's a big game when you talk about down the line NCAA tournament seeding and all of those other things. 337 was busy. Yeah, probably with the previous game of the, like quintuple header on the CW trying. So, like Pittsburgh's got to play sometime. So this is a big game tomorrow. Syracuse, after this, still has 4 consecutive more games on the road. At Penn on Sunday, at Hopkins, and then they fly out to Colorado for Denver and Air Force. So, like, their road swing has just begun. Would this be, in a vacuum, a bad loss for either team? No. It's a great win for either team. Would not be a bad loss for either team. I don't even care what the final score is. It would not be a bad loss because both teams are going to be good this year. But specifically for Syracuse, because of the upcoming schedule, this would be a really nice one to win so you don't, start tilting a little bit early on in the year. You want to make sure, like, hey, if you're on that national championship path, then keep it on that path. Don't veer too far away here before the end of February. Go figure, what's this going to be, their 5th game in the month of February? It's hard to keep track with all these lacrosse games in February. So no wrong answers. Syracuse and Princeton coming up a Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock face-off in New Jersey. Again, I told you it was 19-18 when they played last year. It's not going to be quite that this time around, but these two teams are like Princeton. Remember Princeton back in the 90s and early 2000s? Stodgy old Princeton? No, this is run and gun Princeton. This is zippity zoom all over the place. Princeton. This is going to be a really, really fun to watch lacrosse game available on ESPN Plus. So where do we start? No wrong answers with lacrosse. We start with Joey Spallina. He went 4-4 in the quarterfinals last year. Every single one of those points was vital and necessary in Syracuse's 19-18 win. This time, regular season, Spallina, I'll give him 8 points again. Let's distribute it slightly differently. 3-5 for Joey in the game at Princeton. Who else is going to have a big game? Michael Leo had a hat trick in the playoffs last year. He was big on assists last week in the loss to Harvard. Let's get him back tossing the rock of the net. Hat trick for Leo in this game against Princeton as well. Who else is going to do something in this game? We just always predict, we always need to predict a couple of goals for Wyatt Hoddle. I think he only had 1 last game. We'll predict 2 in the game for Wyatt Hoddle because that's what we do. And we always need to predict John Mullen is going to have a good day. He was actually under 50% in the game last year against Princeton. I'll give him 61% in the game coming up against Princeton on Friday. In the goal, obviously in a game that had 37 combined goals last year, the goalies did not play well. Jimmy McCool led in 18. He stopped 12, got the win. Jimmy's been solid this year. I think he has a nice day. Stops 54% of the shots headed his way, does Jimmy McCool against Princeton. And I think we get another high-scoring game, not 19-18, but high-scoring. I think we get another close game between Syracuse and Princeton, though lesser stakes, the Final Four not on the line. No wrong answers from Princeton, New Jersey, Friday afternoon. Final score, 15-14, Syracuse. The Orange back in the win column in a thrilling game to watch. Of course, come back right here after the game on tomorrow, Friday, and we will rock and roll with some post-game. 6:30, however long the game lasts. We'll do a little post-game show after that. Now we turn the page to basketball on Saturday. Basketball on Saturday. 5:45 tip time at Wake Forest. This is not a matchup at the top of the standings. Syracuse 6-9 in the league. Wake is 5-10. This is a gettable game for Syracuse. Likewise, Wake is saying this is a gettable game for us. This is a potential 12 seed, 13 seed Tuesday game in the upcoming ACC conference tournament. That's where we're at right now. Wake had been on a 5-game losing streak, then ripped off 3 straight wins, but has dropped the last 2, including most recently they lost, like Syracuse did, to Boston College. It's Wake's last CW game of the year. Is this the last CW game for Syracuse, or is Pitt also on the CW? What do we got in the CW landscape for the Orange? Pitt still has 2 more CW, or Syracuse does. Syracuse and Pitt 4:30 a week from Saturday on the CW. 4:30 is much too normal of the time for the CW. I don't appreciate that. The next three tip times are 5:45, 9 o'clock, and 4:30. Like, what are we doing? So, Syracuse and Wake Forest. This is just two meh teams. It's two teams that very possibly may have new coaches next year. We feel very certain about one, and Wake may certainly be in the mix for one as well come next year. So no wrong answers. Syracuse and Wake Forest. Where to start? Donnie, the disinterested Donnie Freeman. This feels like a Donnie gets his kind of game, but at what end? I don't know. 18 points, 6 rebounds for Donnie. No technical fouls for Donnie Freeman. That is a bold, no wrong answer. J.J. Starling, 15 points for J.J. Starling. Cayenne Anthony, remember when he had a little resurgence? Yeah. Nah, 3 points for Cayenne in the game, all on free throws. Because why not? Not 3 for 3 at the line. We like our Nate Kings. Nate Kings. Shout out to Nate Kings. Shout out for Nate Kings. I'm going to guess probably suing ending up with another year of eligibility next year. I'd love it to be at Syracuse, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on that or guarantee that. He will have a nice market for himself in the offseason if he can get himself eligible next year. Nate, I'm feeling a nice Nate Kings day. Give me a nice Nate Kings day. Give me 17 points, 6 rebounds for Nate Kings in this game. I'm feeling a I don't know what Nate George game because that's what I'm always feeling. 7 points for Nate George, 4 assists, and 8 turnovers. I don't even know with Nate George anymore. Tyler Betsy, he made all 3 threes that Syracuse made last game. He didn't make all his threes. He was the only one to make a 3. He'll make 1 3 in this game. No wrong answers for Syracuse. Sadiq White's been coming on here a little bit. Let's keep that going for Sadiq. How about 8 and 7 for Sadiq? Points and rebounds, no wrong answers at Wake Forest. William Kyle continues to bring it. 3 crazy dunks for William Kyle in the game, and then whatever else he plans on doing. Certainly at least one crazy block shot as well. So let's stir it together, put it in the pot, twist it around. No wrong answers. Syracuse and Wake Forest in the game everybody is clamoring for. 5:45 Saturday on the CW. Man, where to even begin? Syracuse and Wake Forest. Final score, 84-79. Wake Forest, no wrong answers. The Orange lose another one on Saturday. Again, after the game, you're in the right spot. Get right back here. No wrong answers for the post-game show. We'll be in the chat. We'll try to get you read. Road game, you never know. And we'll see how it all goes after the game. We'll chop it up and, realistically probably not talk much about the game at all and continue our big picture conversation about Syracuse basketball. Shout out to all our sponsors on the way out the door. Go get the Alfredo at Thompson Road Tavern. Go check that out and get ready for the fish fry on a Friday. Get a bird feeder at Wild Birds Unlimited. Buy some sweatshirts and candles at simplysweetsisters.myshopify.com. And when that's all done, go learn something. Go to the most. Get a museum in your lives, people. Get a museum in your lives. With that, go about your days, everybody. We'll reconvene right here tomorrow after the Lax game. Talk to you then.
Thanks for watching the 315 with Brian Higgins. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on. We'll see you next time.